Welcome to another episode of the Communities of Character podcast. I'm Jennifer Hogan, a former character coach for the Hope Institute and currently serving as principal of Hoover High School in Alabama. On today's episode, I get to interview Scott Mitchell, who has been principal at Brock's Gap Intermediate School in Hoover, Alabama since its inception in 2011. When the school opened, it was a 5th, 6th grade configuration, and in 2018, it was reestablished 3rd through 5th grade intermediate school. Scott has over 25 years of teaching and administrative experience, all of which have been in the Hoover City Schools. He has multiple degrees in education and leadership and over 25 years of teaching and administrative experience. Scott's school is only in their 3rd year of being intentional about building a culture of character, and I think you're going to learn a lot from Scott as he shares a ton of ideas on how they've made their core values central to all that they do at their school, from rethinking how they use their time in their faculty meetings to how they amplify their student voices. Enjoy. Hey, Scott, welcome.
Hey, Jennifer, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today because you're an experienced and successful school leader who joined the Hope Leadership Academy during my recent retirement from public school. And we got to work together as you started to intentionally build a positive culture of character at your school. And many of the school leaders that have been on our podcast have been at those state or national schools of character. And I thought it would be impactful to have you on our show because many of our listeners are considering or new to their start with character education, and they're looking to learn from someone who's in the early stages as well. And I got to see firsthand the strides that you and your school has made in the last few years. So you currently have a team from your school that's in its 3rd year with the Hope Leadership Academy.
Yes.
So will you just share with our listeners where your school was in terms of culture and climate when you made the decision to join the Hope Leadership Academy?
Sure, absolutely. We 21-22 was the first year that we started, and if those years sound impactful, that's when we were coming out of COVID. All of us were coming out of COVID, and our school had been rezoned. We have only been in existence this is year 6 as a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade upper elementary school. And so we had one good year before COVID hit us. And so we had, we've all gone through those years of COVID. And so coming out of that, 21-22 was a very important year for us. We were already thinking of what we needed to do. Our staff, because of the COVID restrictions, we really didn't know each other that well. We were a young staff, and we were looking for ways to connect and really looking at ways to do things differently as we came back out of those COVID restrictions. So the expectations that we taught the students were not easily learned and internalized by our kids. We recognized that we had established our school based on some positive behavior approaches that we had used as a 5th and 6th grade school, and they really weren't fitting. And we recognized that within a year, but we didn't really have the chance to come together school-wide and make those changes. So this was just the perfect timing for us. We really wanted to look at how we intentionally came out and came back to some of those things that we were coming back to as far as extracurricular activities, getting our staff involved, building community, letting everybody get to know each other, the behavioral expectations, the social leadership of our students. And so the timing was perfect. So we were looking at ways to build back that culture that embodied that the kids were changing. We recognized that. A change in the kids that we were educating, filling some of those gaps socially, emotionally, and student leadership was so important to our team. And so that's really what led us to Hope Institute. It's really what led us down that path to making some of those changes.
That's awesome. And we're going to talk about student leadership in a bit, but I know that Hope Leadership Academy uses character.org and the framework from character.org. And so that first principle is about creating core values. It's a cornerstone in building a culture of character. So could you share with our listeners who are just starting this journey, what was that process that your school used in the selection of its core values?
Yeah, so that was kind of our beginning phases. Was we had expectations for our school, but as we started the professional development that was so amazing through Hope, we really realized we knew something was wrong, but we didn't really know exactly. We couldn't put our finger on what the piece that was missing. And so we recognized that we really didn't have core values at the center of what we were doing. We had some expectations. We had some positive traits. We had a few values written in our expectations, but nothing was centralized. And so we had great things going on. Our character program coming out of our guidance program, what we were doing in the classroom, some great things with team meetings was getting started. Some of the things we did with broadcast and morning announcements and some great events, but nothing was central to those core values. So we recognized early on that everything really pivoted off of getting that piece started. So that it was kind of nice for us to all be on the same page. So we had to start with our staff as our team went through and kind of understood what a value is. We really went back to some of those early PD sessions of what is a value. And so we kind of flipped our faculty meetings. We had the boring after school once a month faculty meetings that everybody has. Mm-hmm. And we intentionally decided to use that as a time because that's the one time our entire school staff is together. And so we intentionally made that a year-long PLC of really looking at the core values and looking at culture-focused PLCs. And so we looked at value versus vice. We looked at the types and categories of values. We brainstormed lists of appropriate values for the age group that we worked with as a staff, and really went through, kind of turned around some of that PD that we were getting through Hope with our staff and get everybody on a common page. And then we kind of settled in on 20 values that really spoke to us, that really fit this age group of kids. And then we wanted to truly take it back to stakeholders. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but we really felt we needed the input of the students. We needed the input of our community. And so we had also at the same time implemented the house system. And I don't know if some of the other schools have probably done this as well. We've gone to the Ron Clark Academy, looked at some of the ideas that we had gotten out of from there, and really had put the house system in place. It was a great chance for student leadership. And so we were in the middle of revamping our student council anyway. And so we had what's called a house council. And so we pulled those student leaders together and really used them to take these 20 words. We created a survey and we sent it out to our parents. And we started with the question of, when students leave Brock's Gap and they go on to Bumpus, we feed into Bumpus and then feed into Hoover High eventually, what do we want our students to come away from our school really having a grasp? What core values really embody what we want for those students? And so that guiding question, we put in a student-friendly format and presented it to all students in our school. Narrowed that 20 down to, everybody picking their top 5 or 6. We did that with our staff. We did that with our students. And then we sent some videos out using those students, helped them film some videos and presented it to our parents. And so then our staff went back and we kind of compared those lists and found the commonalities. And so we really settled on 4 of them were easy and it just made sense. And then we had to make a couple of decisions, and we looked at the categories of values that we wanted to choose. And it really made a pretty easy decision to come up with our core 5. And so then we went back to defining those. We defined them, as adults, but then we used our students to help us define them from a kid, friendly language. Mm-hmm. And the students in the House Council were pivotal in that. And then we used our broadcast team, our student broadcast team, and we filmed those videos and then sent those back out to the parents with the kids presenting the information. We put it on broadcast so every student had the same message heard. And then we started, infusing it in all the other ways that we do that throughout the school.
I love that. And I love how you mentioned that you were intentional about your faculty meetings. That's one of the things, as I was serving as a character coach for the Hope Leadership Academy, when you shared that with me, I thought this is something that every school can do. It doesn't take something special, but you just simply took your time that you already had planned and you turned it into an intentional school-wide PLC, a professional learning community with your entire staff, where you decided to focus on building that culture of character. And I love too how much you've mentioned amplifying student voice and hearing from your house council. And so even in schools where they aren't using the house system, they could still appoint a group of students or have their student leaders to do some of the things that you're talking about. And so I appreciate you so much sharing those practical suggestions, because it's so important as you're starting this journey. And one of the hard things it can be to get those core values central to everything that you do. And I'm curious, are there ways in which you've embedded those core values that you didn't anticipate? I mean, these are some obvious things: the faculty meeting, the surveys, the videos from the students, but how in other ways did the core values become strongly embedded within your school's culture?
Yeah, our team was essential to that because we kind of became an accountability team. And so I think it starts with the principal, it starts with the admin team, but you have to have a group of people that trust you and you can have those conversations. So our counselor was on that team. We went through an admin change of our assistant principal, and so our new assistant principal is part of that team. And then we had grade level representatives as well. And so we had a lot of good, strong conversation, and we looked at different ways to do that. And we're still doing that. We had in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of turnover staff wise. And so we've been very intentional with our new teachers and our new staff members that come online to make sure we spend the time of going back over, spending time discussing that as a staff. And so that accountability, we just realized, and we're in year 3, and so we're rolling out conferences and conference forums and talking about the expectations of as our teachers meet with their parents. And one of the grade level teachers said, why are our 2 RISE values, why is that not at the top of our conference forum? Why do we not have that as the most pivotal, the pivotal piece when we're starting that conversation with parents of how's your child doing? And so we've kind of created a culture where we check each other and we constantly are sharing ideas. Those meetings are still going on this year. And so the beginning of those meetings we can share out. So one of our teachers created a student checklist. And so the students can rate themselves. And so we're sharing that, next week, we're sharing that back out.
Oh, nice.
Or our other staff members can see that. Kind of a groundswell of having morning meetings started. We have a broadcast that's sent out through the Google platform, but every class starts their day with that. Students lead it. Our enrichment teacher supervises it. So we made sure that it was a pivotal part of that morning broadcast. So every day we're focusing on some of those core value pieces. We were already doing some things. And so really working with our counselor, we reshuffled the order of the way we did things to make it match those core values. We were already doing them, but we just had to put it in a different order. And so not being afraid to change some of the things that are going on. But there is a sense of accountability of anybody can bring up, hey, we're looking at right now, somebody brought the idea of our committee structure. We're restructuring how we do signups for committees and sponsorships. And we're using the core value approach to that. And so everything kind of falls under one of those. When we have a parent night, when we have curriculum night, we're making sure that we recognize that these character programs are a pivotal part of our curriculum. And so being intentional with it again.
So how did you help your teachers and staff understand that you weren't adding one more thing to their plates? Did they feel that way in the beginning, and how do they feel that way now?
Yeah, and my approach to that is we've done that to ourselves in education. We're bandwagon people. We'll get on a bandwagon of, you have a new principal, they're going to be on a kick, and so that principal's bringing in that new idea. And you being, coming into Hoover High, I'm sure you have staff members that feel that way when you bring something up of, okay, this is just Scott's pet peeve or his soapbox for this year, or this is just something that we're going through, and that's because we've done that for years and we have focus areas. But one of the things that really hit me was the approach that Hope took of, this is not a program. We're not adding, one more plate. Character really is the plate. And so The idea, one of the pieces that really stuck out to me was the idea of a brain on a stick. We over the years, we've pushed with increasing academics and looking at our academics so closely, we can forget the heart of these students and forget to train them to be good citizens when they leave us. And so realizing that character is the plate. We had some activities. We did some small group fun activities, icebreaker activities with our staff to really go back and talk about all of those things that are on our plates as teachers today. But recognize if we can really put this at the center and at the ground level of everything we do, then it's going to make everything easier. We're speaking a common language. We have something to come back to. And so it's made our conversations with discipline easier. It's made our conversations with our counseling program easier, our parent conferences. And so it's kind of becoming who we are and what we do. And so that's been fun to see because you're always going to have, a little bit of a bandwagon issue when you start something new. But if you stick with it, most everybody saw the need for it. And so we really tried to help everybody see that some of the issues of today can be addressed by really focusing on this.
Well, you've talked about a lot of ideas and a lot of things that's happening in your school. And when we talk about the culture, we talk about those things that are seen and unseen. And I'm curious, now that you have implemented these activities and these accountability measures and amplifying your student voice, describe for us where your culture is now that you've been intentional about making character the central focus at your school compared to where it was, let's say even pre-COVID, when maybe you felt like it was in a good place.
Yeah, we had what we called onboard expectations when we were a 5th and 6th grade school. And that approach of teaching those expectations was good and it served its time. But even some of the words that we use, and every letter of board stood for something. And so we recognized at the end of the year, this was something that the adults put up on a poster, but it wasn't really essential to what we did as a school. And the kids couldn't come back and tell us what those expectations were by the end of the year. They didn't really tie it. Even the ones that knew the words or knew the acronym really didn't make the connection to what we did on an everyday basis. And so that was disheartening. And so that was really the core of what we were trying to fix with the core values and going back and infusing it. So one of our 5th grade teachers, she said, we had this very same conversation and we wanted to see kind of a blind test of what the kids knew. And so we took our 5th graders that have been through this for a couple of years now and just had a class conversation. And she just did a lot of note taking in her morning meeting and said, tell me about the values of this school. Tell me what you hear, what you see, what you hear the teachers preaching to you, but also what do you see within the school? And it was cool that, she kind of excitedly shared back out to our team and said, look at this poster. And they had listed all the core values. They had defined them in their own words. They were seeing them throughout the school. They were making connections. When we do, support parade for Special Olympics, they were tying that back to respect. They were tying that back to empathy. So they were making the connections that we were wanting them to make. Now, that doesn't mean every kid can define it. Every kid's going to do that every day. And we're in different places, but at least that was gratifying to know that a group of kids were getting it. And so those conversations, we're actually sharing that back out with our staff of that's a great activity to see where your kids are in your class. We've also talked this year about getting our grade levels together and talking as a 3rd grade team, how this is a rollout year. And so the 3rd grade students are learning those terms, they're learning those values, they're learning to define them in their own language and trying to make those connections. 4th grade should be more an application year where they're starting to be able to see it everywhere they go. And then 5th grade is the leadership year. And so we're trying to, even in phases of our grade levels, of look at what that looks like at a different level. And so that's where we are now. And, we constantly find things we can do better, and we're looking for other ways to improve it. But that's been part of it.
What's been the biggest aha moment for you since joining the Hope Leadership Academy and applying the work of character.org at your school?
I've always taught good character. I've always been a proponent of character programs, but the idea, I think it was probably Clifton Talbert was one of my favorite presenters and authors. But I know he and Dr. Berkowitz with Prime really focused on the idea of head, heart, and hand. And that really spoke to our team of, yes, we're thinking about the brain development of these kids. We're thinking about their growth. That's our job. We're teachers. But I think in education, we have forgotten the heart. And so going back and making sure, give ourselves permission. I think in education, we're so afraid today with the idea of politically correct. We're afraid to cross a line. We're afraid we're trying to, by teaching character, we're afraid that we're getting into the parent lane. And that's definitely not the case. We're with these kids as much more on the awake time than their parents are. And we have a responsibility to teach them to be good citizens. These are going to be the healthcare workers that take care of me when I get older. They're going to be the CEOs. They're going to be the politicians. They're going to be the service providers for all of our community. And so why would we not want to leave it better than we find it? Why would we not want to have a focus on what's good character? And that crosses the lines. It doesn't matter what religion you are, or if a family comes from different backgrounds. These character traits are found in all belief systems. And so we have to not be afraid to really get to the heart. And then the hands is, what do you do with it? If you know what it means to be empathetic, how are you putting that in play? And so at our age, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, our kids are so excited to get involved in a community project. But let's be intentional about the projects we choose and make them tie together. And so they're using their head, heart, and hands to make the world a better place. And so that's been exciting.
I love that. And I I'm almost like flabbergasted, because you have just come with so many good ideas, so much for people to learn from you, especially those listeners who are just starting out on their character journeys and character education at their school. And so I'm really curious to hear, what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to focus on building a culture of character at their school? With so much that you've shared, where would you tell them to start? What kind of advice would you give?
Most everything I've shared came from somebody else. I've stolen it from some of the great presenters and the great authors that Hope has provided us with. But also, we were intentional to have a representative from each grade level in our school. We had both of our leaders as part of the team, and we had our counselor. We've even gone back this year because we had a good bit of turnover, and we've applied and been accepted for a year 1 group. So we have another group of our teachers, because we recognize that everybody needed to kind of sit at the feet of some of that great professional development. And so if we could get it that much more ingrained in our community, let's start a new group coming through. We had a new counselor that started last year and a new assistant principal this year. And so they're starting back with a team of teachers that had not been part of those initial conversations. And so we're able to come back as a team. So I think that would be my first piece of advice, is to build capacity. Have a team of people that can be vulnerable and can be honest. You have to have people that are passionate and are willing to say, here's how we can make a change in our school. And so don't feel pressure to fix it all. We're taking notes right now on things we should do next year to redo our first 20 days of school, because we recognize there's some things we could have done better. So even those failures can be opportunities to do it better the next time. And so you just have to be willing to embrace the change, look for people that are going to help you build capacity and learn from your mistakes, because nothing is, you can always fix it going down the road. You can make it a little bit better every year. You don't have to feel rushed to have all these things in place. I think that was my biggest feeling a little intimidated. You come to some of these schools that have things already in place, or they're already a school of character, a state character.org school of character. And we felt the pressure to, we've got to be there. And we realized, no, we have to be where we are. And so if we can take one step forward each year, and then our new people coming on board, we can help build capacity with them, over time, it is becoming who we are. And so that's kind of fun to see that start to stick.
That's so good. And you've shared so much good information, and our listeners may want to reach out to you and get some more information. They may even want to visit your school or kind of pick your brain about some things. So what are the best ways for our listener to engage with you, Scott?
Sure. We do a lot with through our school website, through our Twitter page and our Facebook page, especially our school information. So everybody's welcome to email me through my email address, and I can share that. We post things on Twitter that we're doing, and Facebook, Instagram as well. But email is probably an easy way to get in contact, and we can set up a time. So,
well, y'all are all over social media, it sounds like. That's terrific. Well, I'll be sure to share your email address and your social media handles in the show notes. And Scott, I'm so thankful for you, and thank you for being a part of our podcast family. You are just doing terrific things for your school community, and I'm so inspired by you. Our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to look at the show notes for any resources that were mentioned during the show. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you have access to the latest episodes. Thank you again for tuning in, and I hope you'll join me next time for another episode of the Communities of Character podcast.